Psychologists, therapists, counselors etc. What are some things people tend to think are normal but should really be checked out? Child psychologist here. It bugs me how much parents don't think they are responsible for their kids' behavior. Yes, it's the main reason I hate doing counseling with kids under 12. I spend more time trying to convince the parents that they play a role in their children's lives and ultimately are responsible for their behavior. A great many seem to think just bringing their child to counseling is the extent of their involvement. I mean, who the fuck do they think is responsible? Well, the parents themselves might not have been really parented at age 12, but done their own thing, so they think it's normal for kids to be independent at the age, and the parents provide the material stuff and counsel, but aren't really responsible. This is so much of it. I'm a foster parent, and so often the BO parents aren't maliciously bad parents. They're neglectors, because they don't know any better, because they weren't parented either. Sprinkle in poverty, low education and institutional racism and things go from shitty parents to harmful neglect. Kids can be independent by that age. Of course there's still much to learn that parents can teach, but behaviorally they could be independent. Psychotherapist here. Some things I see regularly that could have been caught earlier, before they became a problem. Unhealthy coping mechanisms. For example, drinking to relax frequently or smoking a lot. Even something like promiscuity can be a red flag that a person is trying to avoid dealing with something stressful by distracting themselves. Self-harm. Hitting yourself, banging your head on things, burning yourself on purpose, cutting yourself, etc. All of those things indicate that it's time to talk with a professional. Normal child/teen behaviors that are not actually normal, like running away or getting into fights. Not communicating. When this happens, something is usually wrong. Not always, as some folks are quieter than others. But if a child/teen/adult rarely speaks, or if they are silent in the presence of their parent or significant other, it's time to get them to see a professional alone to have their safety assessed. I've seen individuals who are literally shut down due to having been profoundly abused by the people they live with, and one of the main signs of that is silence. I've also seen people in perfectly good homes who cannot communicate due to extreme anxiety, and without professional help it's hard for them to overcome this. Mood swings. When a person's moods change from one extreme to another fairly often/regularly, that is another concerning symptom. Sometimes they are considered eccentric or hormonal, but that sort of thing can be a sign of many problems, from bipolar disorder to post-traumatic stress disorder. My parents always made me follow a sort of social code to a point I just didn't say anything anymore near them in fear of offending them. Good example. I don't know how severe your situation was, but that's exactly the kind of thing I'm referring to. Probably a rhetorical question, but what do you do if you've been in therapy most of your life and it just doesn't get better, or continues to worsen as time goes on? At what point do you just accept that this is how it's going to be forever? I don't remember much of my earlier childhood, but what I do know is that I've always got easily frustrated and cried a lot, only to have my dad threaten me to stop crying when I was younger. I spent practically all of my free time from the end of primary school through to university playing video games, because I didn't think I liked anything else, and couldn't seem to stick with anything else. I've always feared strangers, and been incredibly sensitive to the negative opinions of those I do know. My teeth are badly yellowed, because I couldn't bring myself to brush my teeth often as a kid. For as long as I remember, I've struggled with knowing what I feel, with knowing if I'm ever in the right, with knowing what I want, with knowing who I am, with being easily overwhelmed, with overthinking, with overly negative thoughts, with mood swings, with doing any work not last minute, the list goes on. I've always felt that something was wrong with me, that this wasn't how life was supposed to be lived, that I wasn't nearly as happy as I could be, but when I've reluctantly confided in my family, I've just been dismissed as overthinking again, or trying to blame something other than myself, despite how utterly out of control my own actions felt. I sat through 16 months of a toxic relationship with a girl, diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety, and was subjected to constant emotional manipulation, including threats of suicide if I didn't call her, and yet I stuck by her, because I just didn't know if I was in the wrong. I got counseling at university and felt bad for taking up the space of someone who will very likely need it more. And later that year I failed my degree because of what I felt was a rational decision. That physics just wasn't for me anymore, but neither was anything else. Fast forward through a year and a bit of working full-time in fast food, but working on myself through introspection, experimentation, and research. I'm in a much better place now. I've even got offers to study psychology at university next year. Despite this stark contrast and an explicit collection of the ideas that help me to overcome my own issues, my parents are reluctant to believe I have ever suffered with mental health issues of the anxiety and depression variety, and are insistent that my social difficulties must instead stem from autism, something out of everybody's control. In having a conversation about the idea of childhood emotional neglect and explicitly telling them that it isn't placing blame or preventing progress, and telling them how this idea has resulted in a huge amount of personal progress, they were still reluctant to believe it because they believe me to be just trying to place blame on them. Autism seems more viable to them because what normal person gets up at 8 AM every day and goes out to go to the gym and stuff? They completely deny that they've had any negative role in my upbringing, even after my mom has admitted that she never tried with anything in her life, including raising me. I guess I ranted all this because it does more than just bug me. It's fucking tragic. It could have been a never-ending generational loop of suffering were it not for a subtle but pervading inkling that life could in fact be better than this. And worst of all, in my experience, it seems to all have stemmed from a single stupid fucking misconception about who we are. If there's anything we desperately need in these modern times, it's awareness about psychological ideas. Nobody is born to be a depressed reclusive fuck with no idea of what they want from life. Edit. Thanks so much for the gold and the upvotes. It means more to me than people might understand to know that my experience resonates with so many people. I wish you all the best of luck. A good rule of thumb as to whether a behavior or symptom should be checked out is the same we use to determine a diagnosable disorder. If it causes impairment in one or more areas of life, the range of what is normal is huge, but if something keeps you from going to school or work, keeps you from maintaining basic hygiene, from maintaining your friendships, familial relationships / romantic relationships, it's causing impairment and you should seek help. Edits. Wanted to clarify a few things. This is not an exhaustive criteria for diagnosable mental illness. There are many criteria we consider in diagnosing, but the one criteria that is present for all is that it must cause impairment. Enjoyment is also an important aspect of functioning. If you are getting by in your life but are miserable, get help. You don't have to live like that. Serial killers and sociopaths represent a very small percentage of the population and rarely seek help willingly. This was not directed at them. The areas of functioning I listed are general examples pulled from the Western culture where I live and was trained. Different cultures have different values and the norms of your culture should be taken into account. If you are unbothered by your level of functioning in these areas relative to cultural expectations, good for you. Most people considering this advice likely have a sense that something is not where they want it to be in their life and are looking for confirmation that it's bad enough to seek help. If you're not concerned, my advice is not directed at you. No one is saying that being content with having no interpersonal connections is inherently pathological. Also, thanks for the awards and for all the responses. I've really enjoyed reading and responding. What if I'm very high functioning, like I make it to work every day and have a social life, and I'm able to clean up after myself, but I have no purpose? I'm not actually interested in things. I just exist to pay my bills and smile for the audience. It's like I'm just staring at life's clock waiting for my time to be up. I feel like the world is ending, but it's not scary. I'm frustrated it's taking so long. I'm just tired of existing. Is this fine as long as I show up to work and do my laundry? Edit. Okay, wow. You'll have told me to have kids, do drugs, see a therapist, go for a walk, make a friend, to stop being an attention whore. This is great. Everybody has a fucking solution, as usual. But so many of you feel this way, so I'm glad to know it's not just me. I attempted suicide about 6 years ago. Back then I could barely get out of bed or feed myself. I don't feel that way anymore, so I guess I thought maybe I wasn't still depressed, that I was finally over it. I took a big step a few days ago and saw a therapist, and I have another appointment scheduled. I didn't think this post would turn into what it is. It was a late night post where my thoughts burrowed out of my skull in a fit of abject despondency. Thanks for the kind words and the unkind words. I just hope you all have gotten something out of this. Therapist here. If you grew up with or currently are a part of a family where the whole family has to work to keep one or more members of the family in a good mood or appeased, that's not healthy. People are in charge of their own feelings. It is not your job to appease others so that they can emotionally regulate themselves. That was me growing up. Everyone had to make dad happy. Never knew if something was going to set him off. And when we pissed him off, shit would go on for weeks. Outbursts, throwing breakable items, verbally degrading you, and sometimes it would get physical. That man threw me into a wall while he was shit-faced drunk. Would have gone all the way through, but there happened to be pipes. And then he would use us like therapists, telling us all the traumatizing shit he went through as a child and expecting that to explain his behavior. He'd be the first to admit that he needed therapy and medication, but never fucking did anything about it. Fortunately, he's no longer in my life. Me and my mother walked on eggshells to keep my dad calm and happy. Now I do that for everyone, but I get it's really fucked up. Hey, hang in there. Maybe try to outgrow it greatly with baby steps, but do also console a therapist if you can afford to. Bests of wishes. I'm in therapy for it. Thank you for your kind words. I'll do better. I heard my 9-year-old daughter tell her mom to deal with her own shit the other day. There may be hope for her.